what a week, right? Things that have happened this week. Interesting Ontario draw, which happened for under human capital priorities, where everybody who was expecting it to be a STEM didn't happen, healthcare didn't happen, and out of the blues, they did other priority occupations, about 100 knock codes. And surprisingly, same day, they also came up with a CEC draw, completely making that Ontario's draw obsolete. Sometimes you would wonder, why would they make why would they do something like this, right? Why can't provinces play hand in hand with IRCC? So they don't have to waste so many of their notifications of interest. They don't have to waste all their effort, and of course so many others could get invited and can be on their way, but somehow they don't do that. Of course, then there was this incredible. When I'm saying incredible, I don't mean it in a nice way. So there was this news media advisory from Mark Miller and the Minister of ESDC, and some interesting changes coming up for spouse open work permits, for postgraduate work permits. Surprisingly, and you will find that in the description box of this YouTube stream, I've posted the links of those announcements that were made. And the speaking notes. So basically what happens is when these guys come out and make these presentations, they obviously have some notes, right? So that they don't go off track, they don't go off the book. And then those same notes are posted on the IRCC website so that everybody can refer to them. Everybody can, take a look at them and see what it was all about. Surprisingly, Minister Mark Miller's notes, speaking notes, have been changed and updated on the IRCC websites at least 3 times since the day. And you would wonder, if the notes were if the notes were available to him when he was speaking and he spoke from those notes, and then those notes are published, why would you need to keep amending those notes? It's not like he is going back and repeating those things, but that's what they've been doing. To the effect, actually, they've helped clarify some aspects on those notes, at least for this, for all of us who are getting quite jittery about it. But overall, let's talk about the overall sentiment, right? By God, this is becoming quite negative. And one of the ways you identify that negative sentiment is nowadays through the social media platforms, right? And I'm sure most of you who are in Canada are already seeing it. It's there on YouTube videos. It's there on Twitter. Oh my God, Twitter is like everybody comes ready for a war. Everybody comes ready to fight. Everybody comes ready to call everybody names, throw insults, and of course, exhibit their displeasure with the rising immigration. They can express their displeasure with the rising number of temporary residents. They can express their displeasure on whether it's Indians. Like as of right now, I think Indians are getting a lot of flack for being there in Canada in large number. Why Indians, you would ask? Well, you know what? We are the most populated country in the world, duh. And English happens to be quite well spoken and widely spoken in India, duh. And Indians also tend to be quite well educated, duh. So if there is an opportunity that Indians find or think is something that they would want to get to in terms of a different country, a different place, immigrate to a different place, and if all the check boxes, if all the boxes they can check, education, age, work experience, language skills, and they can check those, well, then you would find large contingent of Indians in another country if they can check those boxes. So don't hold it against individuals. If you are such a big country and you can immigrate in such large numbers, well, then check the policies of the country where, if you're going to hold it against the Indians, instead check the policies which allows so many Indians. And look at the US, right? They have the quota. Well, I'm not saying to have the quotas at this point of time, because at this juncture, it might go against the charter. There is a constitutional charter of rights and freedom in Canada, which cannot have a bias against one nationality. You cannot have any biases in this manner, which is widely known. So if Canada has to go in the direction of having nationality-wise quotas, it is possible. I know there are a lot of talks in the inner sanctum about these things, but if they have to go in that direction, then It's going to take some real changes at the grassroots. And I'm saying grassroots, when I'm saying grassroots, I mean the constitutional level. Of course, it can happen, but at this point of time, it's not happening. So, what people need to do are to identify where things are going wrong. Well, I'll have to accept that. I mean, of course, roots Indians, right? I mean, roots in India. As Indians, we haven't done ourselves a favor by getting ourselves a bad name, especially. I'm not going to talk about anywhere else, but let's talk about Canada itself. Uh, Protests for the sake of protest, just because you know you can protest and just you come out and protest when you don't really have something concrete, asking for rights which you think is an entitlement but actually is a privilege. You were granted a privileged status but you think it's your right, and therefore when you don't get it, you know, like a small child, throw your toys. Protesting for that sake, not good. Just by and large acting in a manner which is not considered Canadian, whether it's throwing trash. I mean, look at some of the collective places where, you know, a lot of Indians get together. We have our own gatherings, community gatherings, social functions in large number. Look at the amount of trash we leave behind instead of carrying it with us. Again, not very Canadian. Things like the number of frauds, which I'm not saying others don't commit or not commit, but this is not about them versus us. It's about how many of them are then assigned to Indians. And therefore, it has become, over a period of time, collectively, we have got ourselves a real bad name. Some of it is well deserved. I'll be very honest. Again, don't take it in a negative manner. I'm there on that side of the same boat. But at the same point of time, some of it is unwarranted, and we are getting it only because we are that large in number. But rising sentiment in Canada at this point of time, very negative against immigration. As I said, some of it is pretty well deserved, and some of it is absolutely, they have got it all wrong in the sense as to where should they direct their anger. It's not like international students or foreign workers just barged through the gates and came into the country. It's not like that, right? They were asked to come, and once they came, they were asked to stay. They kept getting extensions after another extensions. Initially, of course, because it was COVID and Canada needed the workforce, and they extended. And then they extended again. And then they called the international students and the foreign workers assets. And then eventually, when they were no longer needed, then they started calling them as cheap labor. And if they are paying for it, why not? And you would say, well, how can they say something of that sort? And you know what? This is something very interesting. Let's watch this. And it, you know, internet is a very funny thing. Things what you say, once they're recorded, once they're up there, can bite you back. Take a listen to this one.
I mean, look, there's a lot of conversations with different competing policy priorities. You have industries in low-skilled labor, whether it's big box shops or others, looking for cheap labor and wanting to make sure that they maintain a 40-hour work week for some of the students. That's the competing policy with the labor gap that we face in this country, and we need those people working. And why not, if they're paying a whole heck of a lot of money to come to Canada to study more than a domestic student? Why would we deny them that right? So some competing issues there.
Cheap labor wanted by big box stores, and international students are paying much more than domestic students. So why should we stop them from coming to Canada? Of course, right? I mean, it makes economic sense. But then there is this talk. And there are two statements or two arguments that a lot of people on Twitter, on Instagram have been making or do make very regularly. And I would just like to address it for 1 minute, because sometimes doing it on Twitter is not really nice, because eventually once they start losing the argument, they start becoming very personal, you know, start throwing insults, which again, each to their own. At least it shows up on their own character. But first one is that international students said it in their SOP that they will return back. Yes, because that is the requirement of the temporary residence application. And at the same point of time, Canada also accepts or acknowledges and entertains dual intent. What is dual intent? Dual intent is that you want to come and live in Canada permanently, but for this time, you're making a temporary residence application. That is dual intent. It is acknowledged, it is accepted, it's legal, it's there on the IRCC website. So when you come out and say that the international students have said it on their SOPs that they will return back, so now go back. Well, nobody, actually for a long time, people are not coming to Canada for education. That is something which is very well known and established. People are coming to Canada because for a long time, education or studying in Canada has been shown as a pathway uh, to work in Canada and then permanent residence. Now, of course, so many people again then start showing fingers. You are an agent, you are a consultant, you are. Yeah, well, you know what? Agents and consultants have done it. I cannot take the blame away from that aspect as well. But where did it originate from? It has originated again at the grassroots level from the government. They wanted the international students to come, and international students, by and large, historically made for very good immigrants, right? Because the international students were already studying in Canada, so they understood the Canadian education. Then from there on, they were working in Canada, so that they understood the working culture. They were able to assimilate, and from there on, they became good permanent residents because they were able to, transition into the Canadian life. All right, everybody liked that. But what happened from there on was that, as and how I'm not sure how many of you remembered that infamous tweet from Justin Trudeau, where he said our doors are open for people who are running away from persecution. I think it was in January 2017, and the floodgates opened for refugees, right? And people started crossing the border from the US, and people started flying into Canada, and suddenly Canada was a go-to place for anybody who was seeking refuge. Similarly, over the period of time in 2018, 2019, 2020, as and how Canada started announcing the larger number of immigration targets, the multi-year immigration targets, the individual year immigration targets, where they said Canada needs 1.2 million people over a span of 3 years, and those made headlines. I'm sure you remember in Times of India and other newspapers. They made, you can even now Google 1.2 million workers needed in Canada. That's what the headlines said. So you went out and said it openly that you want more people. You also established the fact that we will give more priority if you have Canadian education. We will give you more priority if you have Canadian work experience. Now, who has Canadian education? International students. Who has the work experience? Largely the international students who have then transitioned to the temporary workers. So you are creating the pathways and saying that if you're an international student, we have pathways for you. Most of the provincial nominee programs also then have pathways which are directed to people who came to Canada as international students in their provinces and then workers. And then some of you will again come out and say, well, nowhere does it say we will give you PR. Duh, of course it doesn't say we will give you PR, because that's not how it is said. It is implied in some very clear words. And where is it implied? Again, I have it ready today. I came in all prepared because some of you really wanted to see it. Well, first of all, take a look at this one. Now, this is an image from Marco Mendicino when he was first announcing the postgraduate work permit extensions in 2021. That is when he was the immigration minister. And of course, the link of this, again, you can find it in the description. But here he said, our message to international, and it's all highlighted so you can read it, where it says, our message to international students and graduates is simple. We don't just want you to study here, we want you to stay here. Now, to all those intelligent individuals who are all trolling on internet all over the place as to where does it say that you will be getting a PR? What does it mean? We want you to stay here. We want you to stay here illegally? No, right? We want you to stay here legally. Means we are offering pathways to the permanent residents to all these graduates and students. That's the reason we want you to stay here. Otherwise, why offer them a pathway at all? That was one of them. Of course, if you are going to research a bit on internet, you can find plenty of other references made by other ministers. Also, in some places, calling the international students assets, valuable assets, calling them that, indicating that these will be able to transition so nicely, will be able to transition quite well. And then there is, hey, this is another one. There you go. Oh, no, this one, not this one. Sorry. This one. So this is the mandate letter from the Prime Minister to the Immigration Minister. This was Sean Fraser, because the Immigration Minister, because this is one term of that government and that the mandate letters go out. And then again, it says expand. Expand means that the pathways already exist. and you are going to expand. So one of the mandates that the minister, immigration minister, had from the prime minister was expand pathways to permanent for international students and temporary foreign workers through the express entry system. There you go. I mean, how much more do you want it to be written clearly? And of course, as I said, if you go out and start searching for, absolute excerpts where it's been said in so many ways and implied in so many ways, then you will find them in places that you can't even imagine. And it's all over the internet. It's not like I'm speaking out of some figment of imagination. So whether we say that it has been stated or it has been implied or whatever it is, right now the problem is that in 2020, 2021, 2022, the floodgates opened as far as Canada was concerned. Loads of international students came into Canada. I will have to agree that the quality of students which came to Canada was really, really bad. I'm not generalizing it. I'm talking about a lot of people who came to Canada as international students was really, really bad. And then IRCC themselves reduced the language benchmark for STS stream. Why would you do that, right? If you wanted quality people, if you're already having if you already have feedback from the colleges that a lot of international students who are coming, they cannot even communicate properly in English. How are they going to study? And in spite of that, in spite of having that feedback, you go out and you reduce the language benchmark. Why? Right? Interesting, isn't it? And then you wonder, why haven't they ever curtailed specific programs? So right now there are, or rather at some point of time, as per the, I think it's the Globe and Mail or the CVC, I don't remember which media found out through survey, that there are more than 800,000 international students who completed business related programs, the global business management, the business related diplomas, which if you're a student, you know it very well that those are all trash. Those are all rubbish programs by and large, because the curriculum, they actually in the first semester or second semester or throughout the year, they're teaching you how to operate MS Excel. I mean, can't you watch some YouTube videos and learn how to manage your MS Excel? You really need to pay $20,000 per year fee to learn how to operate MS Excel and then get a diploma at the end of the year and then say, I need to get a permanent residence because I have now learned MS Excel. It's not fair, right? So the quality of international students who came through different for different reasons. Now, again, I cannot get into so many things because I'm an immigration consultant. And yes, I have vested interests. I am biased towards certain things, but at the same point of time, here, what I'm doing right now, this is not me being biased. This is me speaking from the heart. You don't like it, tough luck. You can scroll out, you can switch off, go watch something else. I'm sure Kardashians are doing a good job somewhere. So do all that. But at this point of time, this is a very simple debate. It's not an argument. It's laying out the facts. It's understanding what's gone wrong. And therefore, direct your anger to where it needs to be directed at. Who brought all these international students who are now sitting in Canada and absolutely devastated because obviously high levels of mental stress, because every single week there are new changes. They don't know. Whenever Mark Miller now says, I will be making an announcement tomorrow, people go bonkers in their head. They do not know what kind of new changes are going to come tomorrow, which will make it more difficult for them to now have a pathway. People have, as I said earlier, Canadian education is not top-notch in any manners, except for a couple of universities, few universities. I can list them on one hand. Except for those universities, by and large, colleges and the education that you get there is absolutely down there. So therefore, so many aggregator platforms who have vested interest, so many, why do colleges then give such high amount of commissions to recruit international students? You'll be surprised how much do the people get. Why is it that in India you have, especially in Punjab, you go there and you have so many IELTS coaching centers, SOP writers, and study abroad offices? I mean, you can go there and you can walk through streets and every single office there is doing the same thing. Most of them are misleading individuals, misleading younger people into believing that the program that they're doing is so valuable that not only will they get a class education, it will absolutely red carpet their way for permanent residence. Wrong information. But again, part of the blame goes to the international students because you guys did not research well. You guys didn't even try to figure out what will work, what won't work, and yeah, that's not. You cannot always blame everything on others. Okay, and at the same point of time, who let the guys in? Who let all these 800,000 international students who are doing only global business management or business program or business diplomas in? And who continued to extend the work permits? Who then dropped the eligibility for the language? Who then also allowed spouses of all workers who are on open work permits, as in tier 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all of them to come in? Who made it easier and easier? Who allowed visitors to be able to apply for work permits, which was then completely taken out of the works, in the sense of it was completely taken out of context, it was completely misinterpreted and then plastered across agents' offices across the world? Who did all that, right? So when you wanted the cheap labor, as you heard it from the horse's mouth, you were absolutely, welcoming, please come, please come. And now that the job is done, you want to throw everybody out. But then if you wanted to do this, fair enough. I mean, a lot of countries do it. Then say it like that, right? But only now, when the pressure is really, really rising, and you can make out from that, from all the current political party in Ottawa is really doing everything which is possible to appease the political vote bank. And they're doing everything right now, bringing all kinds of restrictions, trying to sort of say out very clearly. Now, every Mark Miller's statement says, well, you have to understand that everybody who comes to Canada will not be able to stay in Canada permanently. Now, they're saying it out loud. Earlier, it was always, if you're coming to Canada as a student, we would like you to stay here. So you see that contrast, you see that difference. But it's only now that they are saying it out loud. And when they're saying it out loud, they're also, between the political parties, between the ministers, they're all mudslinging. It's trust me, it's just like the Indian politics. It's just that these guys are wearing suits and speaking in English versus some of our guys in it. But it's the same level of trashy politics. They're all trying to call each other names. They're all trying to point fingers. Nobody's addressing the solution or the problem. They're all just pointing fingers. And in the bargain, in this whole process, it's the Canadians who are feeling that it's the immigrants, or rather the newcomers or the international students, who are the enemy. That's not where it is. That's not where the problem is. You have to first find out, why did this happen? Why was it allowed to happen? And then direct your anger there and figure out solutions there, instead of being angry with the students. That's all I'm saying. I'm not biased towards students or otherwise. As I said, there is some really bad quality of international students that came through. I know a lot of international students are really, really going to suffer through the next couple of years. They will not have a pathway. A lot of them will have to go back. A lot of them are going to be extremely demotivated. A lot of them are going to be very discouraged. But that's the fact as of today. Not only today, let me also just sort of get back into the game and tell you that immigration, and I've been saying it for the last 2 years, not yesterday, not last month. Again, as an immigration consultant, imagine coming out and saying, hey guys, the PR is getting very difficult, think about something else, go and look for other options. Canada might not happen. And today again, my thumbnail tells you, watch out. If you're thinking Canada, think again, maybe think of something else, maybe not think Canada at all. Because not only the negative sentiment, which exists quite strongly within the Canadian markets, within the Canadian people right now, it's also the processes. Right now, there are, actually, the conservative number is 3 million. I'm sure it is more than 3 million. There are more than 3 million temporary residents. And whenever everybody is shooting at the Indian students and the Indians, nobody talks about the number of refugees that have been allowed. And most of them who have no reason to claim refugees status at all. Nobody talks about them. Nobody talks about how many people who crossed the border through the Roxham Road from the US and came into Canada and are now costing the Canadian public $4,000 a month, okay, just because they have claimed refugee status. Can you imagine them asking for transportation on the government's expense because the women want to go to a salon? Okay? And the government pays for that. The government pays for the children. The government pays for these people who have now claimed refuge. The government is paying for everything to the tune of $4,000 a month. They're also being given accommodation, food coupons, work permits, free healthcare, free childcare, of course, all of this. And yet, anger is directed towards the international students. Open your eyes, see how many people are making fake asylum claims, and the government, because it takes so much of time to make a decision on the refugee claimants, that individuals have now found this as an easy pathway to come and live off the government paycheck for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Hello, why not? I mean, government is paying, why not? Then why don't we talk about more than 1 million Ukrainians applied for temporary residence visas to come to Canada. I do not have the exact number of how many were approved, but I understand that the number of people who were approved were more than 600,000-700,000. The number of people who came to Canada were approximately 300,000 to 400,000. That was the last figure I had. I do not have the current figure, but that number was huge. Every time there is any kind of natural disaster or any kind of civil unrest anywhere in the world, Canada is at the forefront, which it should be. It has a heart, which is a good thing, which is absolutely something I love about Canada, that it is one of the very few countries which has a heart. But, and let's come to the real statistics in the sense, I mean, I don't have the number, but let's come to the real game. It has allowed all these collective policies, some of which were unchecked, some of which were not thought of, some of which were completely advocated by the lobbyists, have allowed at this point of time for Canadian population to be sitting with 3 million plus people who are temporary residents. Okay. Now, once you are in Canada as a temporary resident, majority, most of them don't want to go back, right? Most of them. And if most of them don't want to go back, what are you doing as the government? What is the CBSA doing? In most cases, you have refugees whose claims have been denied. They've been asked to leave Canada and they chose not to leave Canada. Kya kar loge? Nahi jate. We are sitting here. Do what you want to do, right? What are you doing about them? You know for a fact there are illegal individuals in Canada. To the last tune, there are more than between 500,000 to 1 million undocumented people, individuals in Canada. What are you doing about them, right? On the contrary, until some time back, Canada was considering to offer them a permanent residence pathway. Now, I'm sure there are some very genuine individuals who really had no other option. But is all 500,000 to 1 million, are all of them genuine individuals who really could not go back? Or they just chose to stay in Canada because it was easy? Who's asking? Nobody's throwing us out, so may as well just be here. So imagine 3 million temporary residents, up to 1 million undocumented workers or undocumented individuals. You already have a conservative number of 4 million people. Canada's population is now 41 million. And we are bursting at the seams because the housing issues and the housing crisis and the inflation and the fraud and the mortgage, blah, blah, blah. You have 4 million people who you are allowing to be here because the government absolutely did not check. It allowed it unchecked. And now you are crying because all of this is happening and political leaders are calling each other names. I mean, like children, like small children in a backyard. What to do, right? As an immigration consultant, I need to look after my interests first, right? That's what you will say. But this is also my interest. I live here. This is also my country. I want everything which is good for this country because I can see this progressing into something much, much, much better than what we have today. And it's very important that we have the right kind of people who will then take this country forward. But at the same point of time, what Canada is known for, as I said, is humane. The country has a heart, and you should never let that go. And at that point of time, you should first clean your house, get this mess sorted out, and then go out and start blaming individuals whose fault it is not to be here in the first place. It's you who allowed, and now you're the one who are calling them that you guys are uninvited. No, you are overstaying your hospitality. No, you asked them to come here and stay permanently. Okay, not yeah. Okay, you implied. You didn't say it. You implied, and yet, anyways. So, oh wow. So much for my rant, right? I just went on and on and on. Well, let's talk about the other things which are more important at this point of time, and that is, oh, where's my slide for the weekly roundup? For some reason, I didn't download it at all. So let's just quickly get that. As in how we obviously will get to our weekly roundup, which is a few draws which happened. British Columbia draw happened, Ontario draw happened, express entry happening, and a lot of people obviously are quite quite stressed with the scores. Well, let me tell you very, very clearly, it's going to be very difficult. And if you cannot understand that, I do not know how else to break this to you. 490s, look at the scores this whole year. When did it even come close to 490? Except if you are in a category. And if you are in a category, look at STEM. The STEM guys are already, they're freaking out. They're absolutely getting nervy because suddenly, I'm not saying IRCC is changing the rules on a day-to-day basis as far as the draws are concerned, but because there is no clarity, and it is always the lack of clarity which is a problem. And I'll take a leaf out of what is the recent one. Mark Miller made the announcement, right? You already know about this. This was the strengthening the temporary residence. That's what it is called. Strengthening temporary residence programs for sustainable volume. Let me just see if I can share my screen. I should have it. Yeah, this one. Strengthening temporary residence programs. This was the most recent changes or things that have been announced. I'm sure all of you who are interested in this are already aware. Okay. So when they made this announcement, they just threw it out. And most of these announcements would say they will be announced later. We will be telling you later. We'll be announcing later in the fall, later. Why not now? Why don't you announce it at the same go, right? For example, the proposed reduction that we already know that they're already reducing, okay? Graduates from programs at public colleges will remain eligible. We already know of up to 3 years if they graduate from a field of study linked to occupations of long-term shortage. Now, again, when you make statements like this, but you don't provide context, you don't provide clarity, imagine the amount of speculation that goes on. Okay. Then there is, again, you see lots of things. In some they are putting a date, and in some they are not. And then they put English language, but they don't say that postgraduate work permits need English language. That's what they said, but they don't tell you academic or general, creating more confusion for people out there. If you see any of these kind of announcements that they make, in most cases, they will always say, later in the year, we will be doing this. Come fall, we will. For example, there's another classic case, postgraduate work permits. International students. International students were able to work full-time until April this year, right? And just before April, Mark Miller came and said, later this year, the international students will now be able to work 24 hours per week. Later this year, in the fall. We are in fall. They have not come back and said anything about the change of working hours or to 24. And as of right now, it is still 20. So when you make these announcements, there is nothing to follow up, right? Then they said, later this year, we will be announcing new programs for tier 4 and tier 5 for permanent residents. And then silence, nothing. So much of speculation, agents and all creating all kinds of programs by themselves and selling them. Then they came out and said, again, silent, no details, no criteria. Later this year, we will be changing the pathways for the child caregiver program so that they will become permanent residents the minute they land. Again, silence, nothing else came out. What is wrong with you guys? When you have already designed a program, when you've already designed a policy and you want to make an update, give us the criteria from get-go. Why are you creating so much of confusion? But for some reason, they enjoy it. I think it is some sort of a sadistic pleasure that these guys get out of it. But we got to live with it. Hey, I'm an immigration consultant. What do I know, right? So let's start with a weekly roundup, which has starting a bit too late, right, today. PNP draws. British Columbia conducted on the 17th of September, the BC PNP draw. As usual, you already know the scores are quite high there. General draw is scoring between 110 to 128, 65 invitations issued. Childcare draw at 83, construction workers draw at 89, healthcare draw it's up to now 99. On the 19th of September, Ontario decided to conduct a draw. 1,424 candidates were invited. And this was a very interesting draw because the knock codes were nearly 100 knock codes that they chose to invite. Nearly 100. Score, what they did was, because the last general express entry draw was at 529, I think. I don't remember the exact, but 529. So because Ontario always plays it in tandem with express entry, so 1 point less, so they chose 528. They decided we want to issue 1,424 invitations, so they came to 505. So they invited about approximately 100 knock codes. This time you had payroll, you had finance, you had administration, you had marketing, you had HR, you had all kinds of engineers. Everybody was invited, right? Which is pretty good if you were a person who was a federal skilled worker who still managed to get this kind of a score because, hey, you had an LMIA, or you were a self-employed individual in Canada on an ICT kind of a work permit. This was a good draw for you. But for Canadian experience class, it didn't make any sense. I mean, 505, the last draw was at 507, then 505 was pretty close. So this was pretty much a wasted draw, in my opinion. And I'm sure most of you would agree. Why? Because the very same day, very same day after Ontario conducted the draw, IRCC also decided to conduct the draw. Why can't they talk to each other, right? So they had another draw. It says French. It was not French. My apologies. It was an editing error here. But this was a CEC draw only. Express entry, CEC draw. It's not French. I apologize. There's an editing error there. So the score this time was 509. So the previous draw was at 507. It went up by 2 points. Of course, we expected it. Why? Because of a gap of additional week. Instead of 2 weeks, it was happening in 3 weeks. Extra people add up. Right now, the average number of people who are getting added into the pool with score of 500 plus is averaging at the rate of 250. So approximately 250 people with score of 500 plus are getting added into the pool every day on an average. That's what the pool breakdown suggests. So obviously, with a score of with the invitations that they want to issue, only 4,000 invitations that they wanted to issue, score was at 509. But now with score of 509, everybody who was at Ontario, guys, you know that this particular draw, now this draw 505 to, now everybody who was from 505 to 509, they have something to think about. Should we wait? Should we take it? Now, if you are a 505, 506, my suggestion to you is take it. I'm telling you, take it because you're wasting your time. Okay, I shouldn't be saying it because it's your money. The score might actually drop. You never know. They might issue 10,000 invitations. And you say, Kubeir, you made us waste our $1,500. You wasted our money. So you know what? Now that you have received an invitation under Ontario, you can actually wait for 45 days from the date of the invitation, or from the date of the notification of interest. So you have 45 days to submit your application. What you can do is you can prepare your application. You can keep everything ready. All you need to do is click on that submit button. So wait until the 43rd, 44th day if you wish to. If you are at that 506, 507, 508 kind of a score and you're like quite jittery, should I go with this? Should I not go with this? Of course, it's $1,500 plus it's an additional 4 to 5 months processing time. First Ontario and then you come back to express entry. So I can understand if you do not want to proceed with that, but think about it. Keep everything ready because the documents are the same anyways, right? The only thing additional you need with express entry is the police clearance and medicals. Medicals also you can do later. Police clearance in most cases you should already have. And if you don't have, apply. What are you waiting for? You're already at a very sensitive timeline, right? So apply for your PCC if you haven't. And at the same point of time, wait if you wish to 43, 44 days after the notification of interest and then click on that button if the draw hasn't come through. Mind you, let's say you click on the button to Ontario today, right? On the 43rd day, you have clicked, you have submitted your nomination application, and the following week, express entry draw happens and you get invited. You will still get invited because your profile is active in the pool. Just because you've accepted the notification of interest, just because you've submitted a nomination application does not mean that your profile is no longer in the pool. Your profile will remain in the pool, available for Canadian experience class draws or federal skilled worker draws for as long as you have not received the nomination and the 600 points. That is when your profile goes into the PNP folder of this whole system. But until then, you're open to the pool. And if you do get invited, simply withdraw your application from Ontario. Click on the withdraw button. You get your money also back because they haven't started processing yet. And then, yeah, I guess you will be fine with that. But yes, take a calculated step here so that you don't let go of this opportunity as well. Right. What else have we got here? Okay. Other news. Well, tighter cap for study permits and changes to PGWP eligibility. Well, now, of course, the government is waking up. They're all realizing, oh, we got 3 million of these people. What are we going to do with them? Well, first of all, let's first close the tap. Let's close the doors first, of course, right? That's the sensible thing to do. But still, the sensible thing should be to close the doors completely. Instead, what they're doing is they're leaving a little bit more open so the people can still come through. And therefore, they have now said that from 485,000 study permits cap that was this year, they are now going to reduce it by another 10% and bring it down 10 to 12% and bring it down to 437. So roughly 50,000 less international students or study permits for next year. Not only that, you also now need, where is that? Yeah, you also now need a provincial attestation letter. Was it in the next one? Yes. Masters and PhD students will now also require a provincial attestation letter. Earlier, they were kept out of it and they were not required. However, because Canada loves masters and PhD students so much that they are saying that these guys will be able to transition so easily as permanent residents. Therefore, we will reserve 12% of all our allocated spaces for these individuals because the benefits that they bring to the Canadian labor market, amazing. And yet they are saying that we don't want you to stay here, or are they? But that's another one. So PALs will be needed by masters and PhD students as well. Title cap for the PGWP eligibility. Now, this one is an interesting one. From the 1st of November onwards, when you make an application for postgraduate work permit, if you are a college graduate, means you have a diploma certificate, kind of a graduation, means you've completed a 1-year program, 2-year program, graduate certificate, diploma, advanced diploma, it doesn't matter. Then you will need to score at least CLB level 5. So you will have to have the language exam, French or English, CLB level 5 in order to get your postgraduate work permit. And if you are a graduate with a master's, bachelor's, PhD programs, then you will need level 7 to be able to get your, oh, this is not the one. Where did it go? This one. The university graduates would need level 7. That's the difference. If it's a college graduate who's coming out with a diploma, etc., then you need a level 5. Now, so many people then started talking about this as to, after studying in Canada, why do you still need a language exam? Well, for some reason, and then they said, okay, we gave our language exam before, why do they need it again? Do you think we have forgotten English? Well, there are too many things to talk about here. First of all are the fake language exams that keep seeping through. And it's not only restricted to India, mind you, it's also pretty common in Pakistan, Egypt, Nigeria. It's pretty common in some other Middle Eastern countries as well, and African countries as well. So the fake language tests exist, not only English, but also French fake examinations, not fake examination, but French fake exam results exist, and they are a real thing. And that's number one. Number two, when you made your study permit applications, not everybody was required to give a language test result. So that is restriction only for the SDS stream, and SDS is only for 16 countries. Every other country who applies for a study permit is through the non-SDS stream. For example, China, for example, Vietnam, for example, the rest of the world. And those people, they just need to be able to demonstrate that they will be able to study. That's all. They could say that they have done an English language, they have already completed their previous studies in English, or they could do a Duolingo or any of that sort. And as long as the visa officer is convinced that this person will be able to study, and or in their past academic records, they could say that their English language, they scored this much, if that was one of their subjects or courses. And that was enough to get them a study permit. So no doubt, you have so many international students, not necessarily Indians, okay? Of course, don't keep giving only Indians all the heat, but not necessarily Indians. There are lots of international students in Canada who cannot communicate in English. So now you have the postgraduate work permit eligibility. So don't always give heat here, right? So that's what you got. And then you have this one. But this was a very interesting one, right? Because what this did was, and this said that graduates from programs at public colleges will only be eligible for a work permit of up to 3 years only if their field of study is linked to labor market shortages in Canada. Now, this is a revised version. The original version said that college graduates, or rather graduates from public colleges, will get a work permit only if their program was linked to the long-term shortage. So occupation related to long-term shortage. How did this come up? So what happened is when Mark Miller was making his announcements, he made the announcement and said the prospective students, the prospective word was said very softly. And it was just said that, and because, when you're doing a media release, they're saying it so quickly, everybody's trying to hang on to every single word spoken. So you just try to, capture whatever information you get. And the way he said it, it was like the students who are applying for postgraduate work permits will only get it if their field of study is linked to an occupation which is under a long-term shortage list. Now, the list was not announced, and this created a huge ruckus, right? Can you imagine international students who are now ready to make their applications for postgraduate work permit? They were like completely freaking out. And then the clarification never came from IRCC. The clarification came from the universities and colleges, who obviously freaked out as well. And they reached out to IRCC asking what the hell is going on. And then IRCC confirmed to them. And then the universities and colleges sent out emails to individual students telling them that the requirement is that the new students who will be coming to Canada, who will make an application for a new study permit on or after 1st of November, then those individuals, if their programs, their field of study is not directly linked to an occupation which is under a long-term shortage list, then those people will not be eligible for a postgraduate work permit. So this is for you guys. If you are a person, if you are a prospective student, if you are an individual out there who is thinking of making an application of study permit to come to Canada, think real hard. First, is it really worth it? Are you really going to be able to get your permanent residence pathway? Because let's agree, you guys are not coming to Canada to study, right? You want the permanent residence. So if you're doing that, then know really well if that study program is going to lead to a PR pathway. And if you already have admission into a college or a university for Jan or May, or if you're contemplating next year September intake, know really well that you should make an application before the 1st of November. Because if you make it on 1st of November or after 1st of November, I don't know what to say, then you are stuck, because we don't even have the labor market shortage list. As in, where is that shortage list? Who knows which programs will be eligible, which won't? Will the marketing programs be eligible? Will the business administration programs be eligible? Will the accounting programs be eligible? Will, psychology programs be eligible? I don't know. Nobody knows. And that is the problem with IRCC. They never give you the details upfront. They leave you guessing. And therefore, agents and consultants, me included, we get to make all these sensational videos where all of you guys come and watch. And sometimes people give you correct information. Sometimes you get wrong. You have more sleepless nights. You are the one who completely stress out. And therefore, you are the ones who are on the losing side. So think really hard as to how these things are played out. And therefore, my pet peeve is with IRCC for not coming out with clear instructions at the time when they make these announcements. Really bad, really horrible in the sense, because it's very squirming in the sense it really annoys me, I guess. Drink water, Kubeir. So now you know it. This is for the new international students who are making applications on or after 1st of November. If you are graduates from a program which is not linked to a labor market shortage occupation, which we don't know what it is, then you may not get a work permit. So please be smart about it. And we also do not know whether this will apply to people who are applying from inside Canada. We also do not know if it is applicable to people who are applying for 1+1 program. We do not know if people who are extending their study permits, it's applicable to them or not. We don't know. And so who's going to tell us? I don't know. When you guys know, please tell me also. I can help others that way. Okay, so what else have we got? My God, my rant is not ending today, right? Aren't you get fed up already? All 2,000 of you who are joined in today. Limits for spousal open. Now, this is another one. Now, I'm telling you, this week has been so interesting. So the new announcement. So earlier you knew that college graduates no longer are eligible to get spouse open work permit for their spouses. Only masters and PhD students and bachelors. Then they said that even if you're studying masters, it has to be a program of at least 16 months. Only then you are now eligible. Now, can you imagine the international students who managed to get 1 year master's program for September with the expectation and hope that their spouses will be able to join them, and they still haven't made the application, and bang, now you have this new policy. Okay, that if you have, or if you are an international student who has submitted an application for study permit for Jan intake, or you're preparing for the summer intake. I do not know how many programs start in summer for masters, but let's say you're doing that. This policy is again, putting you in a hot boiling water already with your spouse. Now your spouse is saying, you're gonna mujhe chhod ke chale jaoge, that kind of a thing, right? So these policies, when they come at the last minute, do not give you enough time, and leaves you guessing, then you don't know what to do. So if you are an international student who is coming to Canada for masters, if you're studying 1 year program, you will no longer be eligible for a spouse open work permit. Again, the effective date has not been announced, so that is still out there in the open. Hopefully we will get that out soon. And what else is that? So they are expecting 50,000 fewer spousal open work permits will be issued here. That's basically it. There was something else I think I forgot. No, I guess if I remember it, I'll tell you. Well, that's all I have for you in my presentation. Connect with us on our social media platforms. We are all over the place. Instagram, Twitter, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok as well. And of course, we're all over the place. So if you're right now here with us on whichever platform, because there are more than 2,000 of you. So whoever is joining from whichever platform, hit on that subscribe button, hit on that follow button, or whatever that is. Of course, like, share, and subscribe. And as normal, as usual, at the end of the day, I am an immigration consultant, no doubt about it. If you wish to discuss your application, your queries, your details one-on-one, then this is the link. I am currently in Dubai. So if you want to meet me in person, we are here in the Dubai office as well. So again, you can book an appointment here. And if you're booking a virtual consultation, then please bear in mind that some of your slots might be at an odd hour Canadian time zone, because I'm here 8 hours ahead of you in terms of the time zone. So there you go. That's the link. Please, by all means, book your consultation. Happy to discuss your issues one-on-one. My God, questions, so many of them. Don't worry, I'm not in a rush today. I will try and take as many questions as possible. So somebody says, please talk about categories like transport. Okay, first of all, I don't really know what is there to talk about categories, because there has been no change. There has been no update. There has been no ripples anywhere that at least I have seen or heard of, which would indicate if IRCC is making any changes, making any updates, choosing, not choosing, inviting, not inviting, nothing. However, I'll tell you what I'm thinking. Earlier this year in April, we had landed ourselves on the ATIP notes, which gave us the breakdown of the invitations. And these invitations were under the different categories. So you saw that ATIP notes. If not, then I have a video. Go into April and you'll be able to see those. So there were percentages allotted, and that was a description of the percentages from the invitations for different categories. I think there was 0.5% for agriculture, I don't know, 1 or 2% for transport. There were some percentage, low percentage for trades. Then there was 25%, I think, for STEM, 30% for French categories, and then there was approximately, I don't remember the exact numbers, but about 20% for healthcare. So there were these percentages allotted, and that left only 21 to 21.5% remaining for the general categories. That was, I can't remember, as I said, the approximate breakdown of the invitation in the categories. That is what we accepted. Not that we had a choice, but that's what we came to understand. And IRCC pretty much was going by the playbook. They were conducting large number of francophone draws, no doubt about it. They conducted only one STEM category draw this year, which also happened somewhere in April. Though we were expecting about 25% of the invitations for the STEM category. Never happened. And I mean, no other draw happened after that. We also expected a lot of healthcare invitations to come through, but that also pretty much dried up. There was about one, I can't remember how many draws that have happened. But the difference which happened is, the anomaly which happened is, very soon after that, after April, I think May, May, I think early May, Mark Miller had come out and said that they will seriously be looking at domestic draws. That's all he said. And then I personally met the operations director of IRCC in the NCIC conference in Nova Scotia in May. And he absolutely confirmed that they will be conducting more domestic draws, which basically means they would be conducting CEC specific draws going forward. And immediately after that, we started seeing, I think end of May or early, I can't remember the exact dates, my God, we saw the first CEC draw, and it was on point. Now, CEC draws was never part of that percentage breakdown. Never. There was no percentage for CEC draws. Now, I do not know, but this is again, this is how wide the mind goes, because there is no clarity from IRCC. I wish they had given us the breakdown by themselves. But anyways, so I would then start thinking that since they have started conducting CEC specific draws and they stopped the general draws, PNP draws continue. And because the CECs is largely taking away from the general draw as well, have they in some place compensated from some categories? Because at the end of the day, they can only issue X number of draws. It's not like it's an unlimited supply of invitations. At some point of time, they will need to put their foot down and say, okay, that's all I can issue. And we are now approaching the end of the year. And as we go towards the end of the year, as you are already aware, that you can start seeing the draw sizes reducing, or you will start seeing invitations coming out for other categories if they will still intend to bring them on. But you will start seeing something different. At this point of time, I do anticipate that there might be a bit of a gap for the CEC draws at some point of time. The last week's gap could also indicate that they decided to put some sort of a gap so that they could issue, for example, if they had conducted bi-weekly draw as they were conducting, and they would have conducted 3,300 and 3,300, they would have issued 6,600 kind of a draw. Instead, they issued 4,000. Now, I do not know if there is going to be another express entry draw next week or not. If there is, it'll be pretty good, right? But there is a very high anticipation of a category draw happening sometime soon. They already conducted a Francophone draw last week. I think about 1,000 invitations out there. So they are continuing with that. But at the same point of time, there's another thing which you guys need to understand. Immigration targets are announced each fall. You'll hear of it on the 1st of November. And at that point of time, the number of invitations that have to be issued are also aligned with it. Now, immigration quotas and targets are announced for each year. They are not overlapping to the next year. But the ITAs are overlapping to the following year. Why, you may ask? And so this is how it is. On an average, it's an understood, and it is always a dynamic number. It can never be a fixed number. It's not like they will close the doors once they've issued this many number of ITAs, or they will close the doors once they've issued these many number of COPR. It's an ongoing dynamic number. First 6 months is usually considered that they are taking away from the pool of invitations to be issued with regards to the immigration target for that year, because the average processing time as of right now is between 4 to 7 months. So therefore, until June, the invitations that were issued were for the targets for this year. After July, whatever invitations are being issued are expected or anticipated that these are contributing to the immigration quotas and targets for next year. Why? Because if it takes about 6 months to complete the processing, means the permanent residents, means these invitations, which are, for example, the draw which happened last week, right? 19th September. Those individuals, by the time 60 days to complete their application, so by the time they will complete their application, it goes for processing. As of right now, it's taking about 2 months to get your AOR and biometrics and medicals, and then processing means most of them will become, except for a few maybe rare anomalies, most of them become residents only next year in 2025. So they are all contributing to the immigration target for next year. And that's how it always works. So that's what I want you to be aware of. So for people who freak out that, this is the end of the year, means all the quotas are over, that's not how it works. It's as I said, a dynamic number. And therefore, whatever numbers you are going to be seeing now that are going in are contributing to the PR targets for next year. Now, this is where it becomes very interesting. 1st November is when you will be seeing new immigration targets, new targets which will be coming out for multi-year levels plan as they've been doing. And this time, for the first time, they will also be announcing targets for the temporary residents. So they will be announcing, it's not news anymore because they've already announced a target. But you will be seeing it combined temporary residents along with the other permanent resident targets. The interesting bit here is that it is extremely likely that obviously the numbers will not remain same, they will drop. Why? Because they have to play with the sentiment of the people, right? They have to play the appeasing politics right now. They have to be seen as doing something about the increasing number of people which they brought themselves in. They are the reasons why the people are here. And now they want to be seen as people who are clamping down. So I anticipate, it's my expectation that you can see 10 to 12% drop in the immigration quotas, immigration targets for 2025, 2026, and 2027, which basically means if 500,000 was the number of permanent resident target for 2025, I expect that number will drop to 440, 450, 10 to 12%. And if it drops to 440, 450, where is this number going to get reduced from? Now, obviously, they will not reduce the family class because that's their direct vote bank. Imagine disrupting their direct vote bank, not happening, right? So I don't expect the numbers to be clamped down on the family class. I don't expect the parents, grandparents. There might be a small number change there, but not too much. 40, 50,000 have to be reduced, right? Approximately. Refugees, maybe slight deviation there as well, but majority of this hit is going to come onto the economic pathway programs. Okay, for this year, approximately 265,000, including the PNPs, is the quota, economic immigration quota for this year. You can imagine a big chunk of the hit is going to come to this 265,000, and that is where the numbers are going to get reduced. And you will see the express entry, the federal high skilled, that is the target, the federal high skilled numbers reducing further. And if that number reduces, means the number of invitations reduces, the number of draws size reduces, and if the draw sizes will reduce, you know what the resulting factor is, that the scores are going to go up or the scores will remain high. So please bear this in mind that we are already now in the second half of the year, which is contributing to the immigration quotas for next year. And with this, please prepare yourself. Please pivot if you have to. Please course correct if you have to. Please be aware and make changes in your profile, make changes in your plans if you have to accordingly, because the targets, in my opinion, are going to go down. And that will directly impact all categories, all draws across the board, especially for the economic programs. So as of right now, I do not have any specific information on any specific category, but I'm assuming that in October, we should start seeing some more draws happening for some categories, because by and large, the category draws have been ignored for the big chunk of the last few months. And I'm assuming that primarily that was to attract more CECs or Canadian experience class, because they were really getting piled up within the express entry pool with the 500 plus scores. And you have seen the scores were averaging at 525s, 530s, and I guess there was a big push to bring those scores down, and that's how we have. And that's where I would speculate about this whole thing. Okay. Boy. Any chances for 480 points CEC? I don't even know what to tell you. All I can say is, I'm trying to think how nicely can I break this to you in a very polite manner. I don't know. And it is extremely difficult for 480 to crack at this point of time, unless IRCC does something really, really crazy. Like, for example, let's say there's somebody who's going to get fired in IRCC, let's say, right? Or somebody who's on his last day before he leaves work. And he says, you know what, IRCC, I'm going to teach you a lesson. And he just clicks on that button, 10,000 invitations, 20,000 invitations, and bang, you can get invited. But unless something so drastic happens, something so crazy happens, 480 looks quite difficult. Unless you are in a category, of course, or what you can be doing is to do everything possible to improve your scores. That's all I can say in terms of speculation. I am no god. I don't know anything about inside stories of IRCC in terms of what the draws are, when will it happen, what kind of scores will get invited, what kind of categories will get invited. I don't know. Nobody knows, right? So when we speculate primarily based on the past data, past trends, available number of people in the pool, and so on and so forth. If you see the Express, let me see if I can pick that up. Yeah, I can. All right. So what I'm going to do is pick this up. Now, this is the pool breakdown, right? This is the pool breakdown as of September the 19th. After this, of course, you have seen the draw that happened of 4,000, right? This is on September 19th. So 4,000 people have been cleared out of this 11,752. So we are expecting roughly what? About 8,000 people remaining. This was on 19th. Today is already 22nd. So roughly 750 to 800 people have already joined the group again. So you're expecting this, the number of people in the pool at 501 is sitting at roughly 8,000 people. Let's just say that 8,000 people. Now look at the pool breakdown. 8,000 is here, 11,352 is here, 12,000 is here. Your score is 480. So all this 11,752, all right, now 8,000 have to clear out. All this 11,000 have to clear out. All this 12,000 have to clear out for the scores to then come to 480. You tell me, do you think the likelihood of 480 hitting anytime soon is possible? Because that would basically means 23, 8, about very happy 32,000 people first before you who can get an invitation. So whenever you're looking at this kind of information, then you will know exactly how to speculate about what kind of scores are able to get through. Now, obviously, you are at CEC. So it means that all these 32,000 people who are sitting are not all CECs. There would be quite a few who are federal skilled workers. But how many? Okay, because largely the minute you have crossed 480, the biggest portion, the biggest chunk of people in the pool after 480 is largely CECs. Yes, of course, there are some federal skilled workers as well because they have an LMIA or they have a 200-point LMIA. But that number is not very big. I know everybody believes that everybody who's over 500 has bought an LMIA. For some reason, you believe that. I would like to believe that. And but at the end of the day, if you see the number of LMIAs that are issued versus the number of people in the pool, you can imagine that if you can get a Canadian Masters, CLB 910, 1 year of foreign work experience, 1 year of Canadian work experience, you can very easily get to 500 plus. It's not a big deal. With the number of people who are completing Masters in Canada through different universities, it's a big number. So therefore, getting to 500 is not a big deal anymore. Even 2 programs, right? Even if you have done a 1-year program, 2-year program, you have a bachelor's degree, you can score CLB 10, 1 year work experience outside, 1 year or 2 year in Canada, or 3 years outside, 1 year in Canada. Very easily you will cross 500. Absolutely no issues there. So with this, scores of 480, in my opinion, at this point of time, looks extremely difficult. I hope that helps you understand as to how you can prepare further. Okay, what else have we got? Received an ITA for 507. My PCC was expired because of a quick visit to India and applied for new PCC on 26th of August. And my work permit is expiring in 3 days. Should I opt for LOE or do a web form? I don't understand the question. Should I opt for LOE for what? And do a web form for what? If your question is that should I do an LOE for submitting the police clearance, then yes, absolutely. You see, not only you, but everybody else who is listening who has not received their police clearance yet, but they have to submit their permanent residence application, then you can make an application, you can make a letter of explanation stating that you have applied for your police clearance, you haven't received it, but make sure you add the proof of having applied for PCC and request IRCC to give you more time to submit your PCC. If you have done that, then I've never heard of a case where it was not accepted. So there you go. That's what you can do. I have received invitation for Human Capital Tech in March, submitted the documents, but my status is still DIP. Is it normal regarding the timeline? Yes, absolutely normal. The current timelines are going bonkers. Only today, I've done consultations with few people who are from the Feb-March timeline who are now receiving their nominations from the Human Capital Stream. So I think you're pretty much in line. You should be receiving your nomination pretty soon. So I hope you get that pretty soon, and congratulations in advance. So what of those already within Canada can we apply for work permit extension for our spouse? Well, at this point of time, I am assuming that people who are inside Canada, and for extensions, these changes that are being announced, they may not apply to you, may not. But again, as I said, IRCC never provides clarity with the announcements, and I hope they start doing that. Until such time, please wait, keep your ears to the ground. I hope the announcements will come out soon and you will get more information. I got an IT, I'm on a closed work permit. Can I apply for a bridge open work permit, please? So if that's a technical question, then yes, you can absolutely apply for a bridge open work permit. Always be careful if you have claimed points for arranged employment, because being on a closed work permit and jumping onto the open work permit, there might be a situation, depending on your profile, depending on your application, that you might be risking your 50 points for arranged employment. So always, as long as you have that clarity, by all means, technically, there is nothing that stops you from applying for a bridge open work permit after you have submitted your PR application, after you have your AOR. Okay, what have we got here? So somebody says, what if we apply before November the 1st? Now, I do not know what you're referring to. Are you referring to the postgraduate work permit? Are you referring to the new study permit? Okay, so whatever it is, the effective date as announced for what you're referring to is 1st of November. Means applications made on 1st of November, after 1st of November, will have the implications of that announcement. Since I do not know what you're referring to, so all I'm saying is that whatever you wish to do, whatever application you're planning to submit, please submit before the 30th of October so that you stay safe. Because what happens is the time zones, the timelines that you see are always as per the UTC time zone, okay, which is 4 hours or 5 hours ahead of the Toronto time zone. So always bear that in mind. You might think it's midnight Toronto time zone. It is not. It's UTC time zone. So always keep that in mind when you're making your application. So my recommendation, always submit, not even 30th of October. Keep 29th of October as a deadline. Okay, again, the same question. I'm extending my study permit. Does the new rule apply to me? I don't know, because IRCC did not bother to provide any clarification. Fingers crossed. Hopefully, we'll get the clarification soon within next week, and then we can start taking a look at how that plays out. All right, Janlan, I'm sorry, no question there. Can I change my job after OINP job offer nomination? Now, if you are a person who received your nomination based on the employer job offer stream, international student stream, please read the terms and conditions. Please read the requirement on the Ontario website. It will tell you that you need to maintain your job, your employer, until you become a PR. At any point of time, if you change your employment because your nomination is employer driven, it is restricted to the employer, then Ontario may choose to withdraw your nomination, and then you will land yourself in trouble. Nothing there. My PR application under processing uploaded intentions to leave Quebec after PR approval. Does attending Quebec paid French classes impact my PR application? Attending Quebec paid French PR classes does not impact your PR application. If that's your question. So because you're attending French classes which are paid by Quebec, will that impact your PR application? No, it will not. So that is something which you don't need to worry about. Food supervisor 8 months, test technician 6 months. Each job period is not continuous. Work for 30 hours a week. Does this make me eligible for CEC and general draw? If this work experience is inside Canada within the last 3 years, then yes, you can combine any kind of work experience, any employer, as long as it is paid, as long as it is under tier category 0, 1, 2, 3. No problem under Canadian experience class. I got human capital NOI last week. Congratulations. Do I need ECA for my bachelor's degree? I have Canadian master's. Do I need to list both my degrees in the education history? You need to list all your post-secondary education in your education history. Yes. Do you need ECA for your bachelor's? No, because your highest education is master's. It's Canadian master's, and therefore you do not need ECA for your bachelor's degree. Done my master's in Canada with 1 year CEC and 6 years India experience. My CRS with family is 488 with no Ontario Tech and STEM draw. Can I apply without my family as not accompanying? So if your question is that your family, I mean, can you submit an application? Can you apply as spouse not accompanying? Yes, you can. You see, a lot of people confuse this with the physical presence. What happens is, if it was not an option, if you are not allowed to do it, you would never have got the option of accompanying, not accompanying. The reason they are giving you this option is because it's a choice. In a lot of cases, for example, if I want to go somewhere, my spouse does not want to go with me, right? She may have other plans. She may want to go out somewhere else. And therefore, my spouse does not have to accompany me everywhere. Similarly, even if you both are in Canada, physically in Canada, but your spouse, let's say, does not want to immigrate to Canada or does not want to become a permanent resident, it's absolutely fine. Different people have different priorities. So even if your spouse is in Canada, if you have a reason to say your spouse is not accompanying, absolutely you can submit your application as non-accompanying. Just provide a brief explanation as to why your spouse will not be accompanying you. Manik says, I recently gave SELPEP to improve CRS. Score is 507. With new score, re-evaluated and improved to 510 after transmittal. It still reflects 507. How long does it take to update? It actually updates pretty quickly within few minutes. So you need to check your Express Entry profile. You probably are not doing something correct. Just identify where you may have not made the correct corrections correctly in your corrections correctly, where you may have not made the corrections in your Express Entry profile. Once you've done that, submit the application, submit the profile, make sure you put your electronic signature on it, and then you should be able to see the update of your scores within the few minutes. Saw your post on Insta clarification from colleges and institutions about PGWP. Will student already in Canada will get PGWP and new rules will be applied to those who apply for study permit after 1st November? Good question. I don't know the answer. Why? Because IRCC never bothered to clarify. Even the clarification that we have received and that you have seen on the Instagram, on Twitter, on the Facebook is only because we managed to get our hands on to screenshots from the universities and colleges, the information that they sent out. So what will be the implication for people who are extending their study permits in Canada or who are doing a 1+1 course? What is the implication on them? We don't know at this point of time. So you will have to wait till IRCC comes out with that information. Any possibility of healthcare draw? Well, I'm fingers crossed. I'm hoping that the draw happens, but I don't know whether it will happen or not, or when it will happen, or how many people they will invite, or what score. All that information is only privy to the IRCC officers in the know, and unfortunately, mortals like me have absolutely zero idea when that will happen. Do all people get points for Canadian experience 1 month early? Okay. So it's not that the points are given to people. It's a system glitch. It's the Express Entry system. Now, Express Entry system was designed somewhere. The initial phases were designed in 2010, 2011, and then it kept on developing. And eventually the program was, or the system was launched in 2015. So 2010, they decided we're going to do something like this. 2012, the contracts were awarded. That's when most people started working on it. So it took them 2 to 3 years to completely finalize, and you have the system. At that point of time, they completed the system with month, year as the starting date and ending date of the work experience. Now, because the system calculates month, year, what it does is it calculates first of the month for the starting month and the end of the previous month for the ending month as your work experience calculation. And therefore, the system calculates the points 1 month earlier than you actually completed 1 month experience, one year experience. So it calculates because of that small glitch. IRCC is aware of it. And even if you get invited with you not having completed 1 year, but in the 11th month, you get the points and you get invited, you can absolutely continue with your application. Just you should submit your application only after you have actually completed the legal period of work for which you are claiming points. That is the most important part. Accidentally raised 4 web forms for same document upload. Will this cause rejection or delay? Also can change job offer PR submission. Why would you make such accidents? But yes, okay, it doesn't make any difference. You submitted 4 documents. Those 4 documents will be attached to your file. It doesn't really create much of a delay or issues. Don't worry about that. Can you change your job? Well, it all depends. What kind of an application are you doing? Are you doing an application where you received a nomination or where you have job offer points? Then, of course, if you're changing a job, it can have an influence. It can have an impact on your PR. But if you are an Express Entry candidate, you are a CEC candidate, you did not claim any points for a job offer, arranged employment, or you did not get nomination, which was employer driven, then absolutely you're free to change your jobs. No issues with that. Does change from maintained status to refusal of work permit extension affect the Ontario's human capital priority application? Is P engineering required for the same draw to prove experience as engineering? So first question, no, it does not impact. If your status changes from implied to refused, it does not impact your human capital priorities application. Is P engineering required? Well, then please check the knock code of what work experience is. Under the employment requirement, it will tell you if a license or certification is required. And if your work experience is outside Canada as an engineer, then of course you don't require a P engineering, because that may not be a certification requirement in that respective country. So no, you don't need it. Spouse has postgraduate work permit, working tier 4 part-time job. Am I still eligible for spouse open work permit extension? Is it necessary for postgraduate work permit holder to have tier 0, 1, 2, 3 or a full-time job for spouse open work permit extension? Good question. A lot of people are confused. So let's take this. If you are applying for a spouse open work permit while you are making an application for a postgraduate work permit, or if you already have a postgraduate work permit, in both the situations, you as the principal applicant, because you are the postgraduate work permit holder or you are the postgraduate work permit applicant, you need to be working at the time you make the application. And in your spouse's open work permit application, you must add your employment documents and your pay stubs, most recent 3 pay stubs. In the employment documents, it should list your name, job title, working hours, and your job roles and responsibilities. Extremely important. It's the failure to provide these documents that lands your spouse open work permits to be refused. So that is the basic funda. Now, tier 4, absolutely. There is no condition that your job has to be full-time. It can be part-time, it can be full-time, it doesn't matter. You are eligible to apply for spouse open work permit. There is also no tier code restriction for postgraduate work permit holders to apply for spouse open work permits. You could be under tier code 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's absolutely fine as long as you are not into the agricultural seasonal employment categories. Only those knock codes have a bit of a restriction. All others, tier 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, have no restrictions at all. So if you are working in any knock code, it's fine. You are working full-time, part-time, it's fine. You can apply for spouse open work permit if you are on a postgraduate work permit or applying for a postgraduate work permit. I'm on implied status, awaiting decision on my fake postgraduate work permit extension. If I received an ITA while on implied status, can I apply for bridge open work permit for my spouse and myself, outland, inland visitor visa? Yes. You are on an implied status. Let's keep the fake extension out of the picture. You are on an implied status. As long as you are on a maintained status, you can continue working. You can absolutely make an application for bridge open work permit. If your spouse is accompanying you in your PR application, you can also apply for your spouse's open work permit while you apply for your bridge open work permit, provided you have submitted your PR application. When you get the decision of your fake extension, that time you can no longer work. And this comes from the fact that the authorization, how do you get whenever you make the authorization, you get the authorization under 2 different sections of the law. First section of the law allows you to stay, live, reside in Canada. Second section of the law decides whether you are eligible to continue working or whether the previous permits conditions apply. When you make an application, another application, while you are in implied status, then the authorization to stay in Canada continues, but the authorization of working in Canada ceases once the decision of your first work permit has been made. I hope that clarifies. You can only start working once your bridge open work permit gets approved. Master student who submits study application after 1st November will still be eligible for up to 3 years of work permit, right? Yes, right. LMI approved postgraduate work permit is starting on October 24th. My PGWP is starting on October 24th. Huh? I don't understand. When should I apply for LMIA work permit? What happens when PGWP approved after LMIA work permit? I don't know. There are too many mixed questions. I don't really understand your question, to be very honest. But it doesn't matter. If you have a postgraduate work permit, why would you want to apply for a closed work permit, even if it is LMIA based? Because you don't really need one. And if you're applying for the LMIA closed work permit, then obviously you don't need a postgraduate work permit. And if you wish to make applications for both, you can still do it. There is no problem. You can actually technically hold 2 work permits or 2 permits. There is no problem. So if you're eligible for postgraduate work permit, go ahead and apply. If you need to apply for a closed work permit based on your LMIA, because your LMIA is expiring, you need to get those points, then you can also apply for the closed work permit. No problem. Sorry, Zeal, nothing there. Shubham says, my CRS score with the non-accompanying spouse is 501. Will she be able to extend her open work permit if I somehow get ITA and then COPR? Huh? No. No. Non-accompanying spouse, nothing to do with you. You cannot get your spouse an extension of a work permit. She's non-accompanying. So she will lose her status once her work permit expires. And because you can apply for bridge open work permit, you cannot apply for her work permit because she's not accompanying. After you get your bridge open work permit, because you have an open work permit, you may apply for her open work permit at that point of time, and that is also on the discretion of IRCC if they will accept that application. Because technically, if your spouse is not accompanying you and you're applying for bridge open work permit, then your spouse, if your spouse is not accompanying, is not eligible for an open work permit. Okay. Is flag polling allowed for work permit LMIA on study visa? Yes. If a primary applicant whose PR application is processing applies for bridge open work permit, can their spouses also apply for extension of spouse open work permit? I just explained that. Yes, you can. If your spouse is accompanying and you are applying and making an application for bridge open work permit, then your accompanying spouse can also make an application for extension of spouse open work permit. I have submitted my documents for March. My status is still in dip more than 2 months. Is it normal? Yes, absolutely normal. No problem. Postgraduate work permit is expiring. My fiance's postgraduate work permit will expire. If I marry and apply for spouse open work permit, will the new changes in policy impact me? Well, technically they should, but we don't know as to how does it impact people who are already inside Canada. So, yeah. Your fiance's postgraduate work permit expires in August 2025. So as of right now, they haven't really clearly indicated when will the changes for spouse open work permit come into effect. And until that happens, you're free to make an application if you're eligible. Nothing here, nothing here. Deep Shah. After getting the human capital nomination in the Express Entry profile, can we change the information provided to the OINP profile in Express profile? Yes, you can make the changes. So there's no problem in making changes in your Express Entry profile, even if the information is provided to Ontario, as long as that information is not completely contradictory and material. So you have to be careful as to what kind of changes you're making. But can you make the changes? Yes, you can change your NOC, you can change the period of work experience, you can change the name of employer, you can change your top title. As I said, you have to just be careful as to, is it really material as the change, or is it completely contradicting what you have already told Ontario? 504 without LMIA, work permit expiring, also applied for LMIA, but it's taking too long. When can I expect a drop to 504? I don't know. It all depends on how frequently IRCC conducts its draws and how many invitations they issue. CAC 508 possible, postgraduate expiring in November. Well, based on the current draw, if they conduct another one pretty soon, then I am certain that it would definitely drop to 508. Any chance for 507? Same answer. If they conduct a draw soon and issue the large size draws, then yes, it's quite possible. Recent Ontario nomination applied federal skilled worker category. Do I have to stick with federal skilled worker in Express Entry or can go via CEC? You can go via CEC. There is no problem. Express Entry is completely different than Ontario. Ontario nomination you may have gotten because of federal skilled worker program, because your eligibility of work experience outside Canada. You can absolutely be a Canadian experience class in Express Entry, but just make sure you correctly reflect your foreign work experience in your Express Entry profile, and also please provide the documentation for it. Can I get PR if I learn French? Tell something. Tell something what? Yes, absolutely. You can become eligible for Francophone category if your scores are within that range. If you are able to score NCLC level 7 in your French language exam, then you would be eligible under the Francophone category in Express Entry, as well as in Ontario's French speakers as well. My individual score is 509 with spouse 501. My work permit is expiring 26th of September, which is 4 days from now. I recently got an invitation from Ontario on my individual profile. Take Ontario without spouse, wait for LMIA filed 14th of April. I would take OINP. I'll be very honest with you. And the reason why I will take OINP is because you don't know what tomorrow brings. You don't know when your LMIA will be approved. You can, it's a matter of $1,500, which you can always take a call whether you want to continue with it, you don't want to continue with it. If you get your LMIA within the next 2 months, then you can always withdraw your application from OINP. So that's a decision, that's a judgment call you will have to make, because there's money involved. But if I was you, I would take it. I as much as it is 1,500 Canadian dollars, you should know that you will be able to make that money pretty quick. But if you lose the opportunity, you would be quite regretful. You'll be quite resentful about this fact. So it's a decision you have to make. You're buying a peace of mind for $1,500, don't you think? 2 or more certificates, diplomas, or degrees. One must be a program of 3 years or more. Can you explain about this? I'm not sure what you want me to explain about this. This is for people who claim points for 2 or more degrees. One of it must be a program that you have completed over a 3-year period. And the second could be any other program with a minimum duration of 1 year. For example, you may have done a bachelor's degree, which is of 3 years, at least the equivalencies of 3 years. And when you come to Canada, you could do a 1-year program. You will be entitled to 2 or more points, 2 or more degree points. Or you may have done a 3-year diploma outside, and then you come and do another 1-year diploma. So then again, you will be eligible for 2 or more degree points. That's what the explanation for this is. My score will increase to 509. Right now it's 486. What are the chances will CEC continue in October? Well, in my opinion, CEC would continue. And the reason for that is because they would like to concentrate on domestic temporary residents so that they can give them an option for permanent residents. So in my opinion, I think CECs will continue. I received my nomination, applied for LMIA exempt work permit, received my biometrics update recently. I have a travel planned on October. Is it likely that I will receive the LMIA exempt work permit? I received my OINP nomination. Okay. Oh, well, if you have made a correct application, if you are eligible for it, then I don't see any reason why you won't receive it. But I don't know when you will receive it. So if you have a travel planned, by all means travel. When you do return back to Canada, just make sure you have a visa to return back to Canada. And if you're entering Canada with a TRV, you will be entering Canada as a visitor. You cannot work until your work permit has been issued. So, yeah. My work permit is expired on August. Now I'm on applied visitor record, and employer applied LMIA in PR stream. Should I do flagpole or go to? No, you can't do flagpole. The reason is because your LMIA is in PR stream. If it's a PR supporting LMIA, you are not eligible for a work permit, so you can't flagpole. And I don't have status in Canada, then yeah, you can absolutely leave Canada. And if you have a visa, TRV, you can always come back to Canada as a visitor. But no, you can't flagpole and apply for work permit because you are saying yours is a PR supporting LMIA. Get LOA and visa for Master Jan. Do I need PAL? If you are making an application after 1st of November, you need PAL. Again, the dates have not yet been clarified, whether it also applies to the new, whether the new requirement for PAL applies to master's program 1st November or later. But if you already have the LOA, I would recommend you make an application before 30th of October so that you steer away from that condition if it happens. Update changes for Manitoba PNP. I haven't heard of anything specific at this point of time. What's the difference between high wage and dual intent LMIA? Actually, there is no difference. I'm not sure what your question here is. Dual intent LMIA could be low wage or high wage. Dual intent LMIA basically means that the LMIA supports PR application and you can also apply for a closed work permit with it. High wage LMIA is also dual intent or can be dual intent. It also supports PR application and you can apply for a work permit. So I'm not really sure what exactly you are asking me. The difference usually would be between a high wage LMIA and a low wage LMIA. That is defined by the wages applicable for the province and the median wage of the province. If the wage of the LMIA is lower, then it's a low wage LMIA. If the wage of the LMIA is higher, then it's a high wage LMIA. But cannot he add the AOR in the same bridge? I don't know what you're asking. I absolutely don't know what you're asking me. And you have to always keep in mind, if you have already applied for a fake extension, you applied when you had not submitted a PR application. So it's not like 3 months later you make a PR application and then you tell IRCC, hey, you know what, I did a fake extension. This is my AOR. Please accept my badge open. That's not how it works. You have to be eligible the day you submit your application. So taking those kind of chances puts you in a bit of a spot of bother, I would say. If create express entry profile on study permit and later apply for postgraduate work permit, does it affect negatively postgraduate work permit application or chances of refusal of PGWP? No, absolutely not. Zero chances of your refusal for postgraduate work permit because you made an express entry profile. Absolutely no way you will get that refusal, at least because you're already inside Canada. So your intention to reside here is not questioned. Current CRS 508, 1 year postgraduate work permit expiring, eligible for federal skilled worker program. What chance of a general draw in coming months? I'm a corporate lawyer. Should I be looking for another stream? General draws, I don't know. Again, all these, which draw, what score, I don't know. I don't think anybody out there knows, and nobody can actually know because IRCC did start out by saying they will be conducting general draws, and then they changed their course. Now they are doing more CEC specific draws, and rightly so, for the reason because of the number of temporary residents in Canada. And I feel there can be one general draw, but will it be at 508? I don't know. I think there are lots of federal skilled worker people who might be in the pool with a higher score, and tough to say, very difficult to say if and when and how. 481, what are the odds of my profile getting in STEM or HCP tech draw before Feb 25? I don't know. I can't say because all of it depends on the number of invitations being issued and when the draws are being conducted. So very difficult to say. So therefore, from your side, you should always try and bump up your score. If you're at 481, you should know that if Ontario is to conduct a draw today, it will be at 490 below. And trust me, if Ontario is to conduct a STEM draw today at 490 below, 481 might be very difficult to reach. So therefore, if you're targeting Ontario, then you should make sure your scores are closer to 490, as close as 490 is possible. Nothing there. I worked from this date to this date. By months, it's full year on my CEC file, but I'm short 12 to 15 days by exact dates. Will it count as 1 year for CEC? CEC counts. So when they're calculating your work experience, they're calculating as per the weeks. And they do a manual calculation. The system calculation doesn't count. That's why they do a manual calculation at the back end when they're processing your application, when they're assessing your application. And that is usually done by the number of hours and number of weeks. So you need to make sure that you have the correct number there to be eligible. Closed work permit expires with the same employer. Can I apply for extension while if an LMIA will be under processing with spouse inland? Technically, yes. If your LMIA is currently in process, you can make an application for work permit extension with proof that the LMIA is in progress with the screenshots, and hope and pray that IRCC will wait for your LMIA application to be approved. In quite a few cases, they do. I have an ECA for 2+ degrees from India expiring in Feb. I've completed Ontario College. Do I need an ECA anymore? Yes, you do, because you need to claim points for 2 or more degrees. And therefore, you most definitely need ECA for your 2+ degree, whatever that is. What's a 2+ degree? But whatever it is, I'm not sure what the word 2+ degree is. But if it's a bachelor's degree or a 3-year diploma, then you most definitely need it. And you already have an ECA. All it takes is for you to apply for a duplicate copy from WES. It automatically gives you another 5 years validity. So while I do not know the exact evaluation that you have for your degree, I would always say to extend it. Deepak, nothing there, sorry. Do we need to show 1560 plus 1560 to gain the second year of work experience as my duration of 2 years is complete? Yes, you need 1560 plus 1560 plus 24 months in order to be eligible for 2-year points. My dad is a police officer. I applied for his visitor application for my graduation, but it's been 20 months, no results, which is quite common for individuals who have served in military, armed forces, police, intelligence services, or any kind of government services where they may have been involved, or where they may have interaction, or where they may be assumed to be involved in any kind of activity which may have resulted in anything which could indicate human right violations or anything of that sort, then they go under extensive security check, and therefore those applications in some cases can take longer. Can we create two different EE profile with different GC key, one with wife accompanying, one not? Well, technically, IRCC has said that this is illegal, and there is also an ATIP notes where they have raised a concern with the duplicate profiles that are being created. At any point of time, they can take an action, and when they take an action, they may delete all your profiles at the same time, or they may further bar you from creating another profile, anything of that sort. As of right now, if you wish to make one, yeah, you can, but as far as the IRCC is concerned, it's illegal to have multiple profiles. I'm pursuing my MBA. My spouse is in a work permit. Can they continue living here while I apply for my postgraduate next year and their respective permits? Yes, absolutely. They can live in Canada for as long as they have a valid permit, they have a valid status, no problem at all. Started working full-time on my study permit, continued my job after applying for postgraduate work permit. While creating EE, what should I put as a start date? Well, you should put your start date the day you applied for your postgraduate work permit. That will be your date, eligible work experience date. In your reference letter, your employer may mention the earlier date while you were working, while you were a student, and you can always add a letter of explanation that earlier I was working as a student, and I applied for my postgraduate work permit on this date. So my eligible period of work experience for points starts from this date, and that's what you have reflected in your work history. Kamaldeep says, applied for family sponsorship. Also, I've applied for TRV after getting AOR and sponsor eligibility. Are we still getting spousal TRV in 30 days? No. That was just a... Don't be silly. IRCC never sticks to their promises, or ministers never stick to their promises. There is no 30-day TRV policy at all. They did it with a bit of a fanfare in the beginning, and then it's back to processing time for just any regular TRV. If you're lucky, you might get it in 30 days, and you might say it's still on. But in most cases, just follow the regular TRV processing time, and that's how your application will get processed. I got my ITA, but my closed work permit application is under restoration. Can I apply for PR? Oh, yes, technically you can. There's no problem. It all depends what your current status is and if you would be eligible for your arranged employment points. But if that is not the impact there, absolutely you can make an application for PR. Open work permit was issued for 2 years on my spouse's 3-year work permit because of a passport, new passport in December. Will this affect my eligibility to renew? Sorry, will what affect your eligibility? I'm not sure what you're asking me. But if you're asking me about the new changes, again, as I said, we do not have clarification from IRCC as to who will be impacted and who will not. In my opinion, I think the extensions will not get impacted. It will only be new applications for spouse open work permits which will get impacted. So if you already have a new passport already, then my suggestion is to make a new work permit application already. Work permit is expiring, scoring 493, graduate in Canada, current study is French. Is there a work permit I can apply? If you have Francophone proficiency level 5, NCLC level 5, and if you have an employer who wishes to support your application or sponsor you, then you can make an application for closed work permit under the Francophone Mobility Program. Applied for PR and GCMS notes, recommended pass, analyst recommendation pass. But in work experience for Indian experience in note, unable to verify employer through open sources, no RR in GCMS. Well, if it is recommended pass, then I think it should be passed. There is no point in freaking out when you see these things because you have to first see what was the final recommendation given. If the final recommendation is pass, then at some point of time, through some manner, they would have cleared your verification. If not, at some point of time, they will ask you for more information about your employer. My current work, guys, please don't do any more super chats. I will not be able to answer them. I wouldn't want to leave you high and dry there. I'm currently working for company X. Oh, you work for Twitter. Nice. I have received a high wage LMIA from another company. If I claim points for LMIA, can I continue working for my company until I receive my PR? Technically, yes, you can, provided what work permit are you on, and are you applying for a closed work permit on the LMI that you're getting? But if you're on an open work permit, absolutely you can continue working even if you have an LMIA from a different employer. You can claim the points of the LMIA from different employer. You can continue working. I have handled so many such applications because it's quite common for a lot of people to be able to obtain LMIAs from different employers while they're working for a different employer, even if you are on a closed work permit. Absolutely possible, no issues. Please go ahead. Am I eligible for CEC while living in Quebec? Well, actually you are. It's only that you have to express and demonstrate your intent to reside outside Quebec in order to submit your application for PR in express entry. If you're able to do that, not a problem. In flag polling, not so risky for LMIA exempt work permit? Well, it is quite risky. And if you're not eligible, and if during questioning you are discovered to be in non-compliance or in violation of any rules and regulations, then it can become quite problematic. But if that is your only option, then you can flag poll. And you don't have any other options anyways, right? But if you are on a work permit and you want to apply for another work permit, closed work permit, then you can. There is no problem with that either. So you'll have to choose the better devil. And if you have a valid status in Canada, you have a valid status, then, and you have nothing to hide, you are not been in non-compliance at any point of time, and you have all proper documentation, you're not lying, you're not providing any fraudulent documents, you do not have any fake information anywhere, you have nothing to hide, you have no problem. So those negative things that you hear are from people who have some skeletons, who have been lying, who have something to hide, who are working illegally, who are on some permits that they shouldn't be on. Those are the ones who get into trouble. Timeline for student SINP waiting from 2 months. Student stream SINP? Oh, student, I mean, as far as SINP is concerned, anytime 6 to 8 months is quite normal. Applied for LMIA in April, waiting, any idea? Yeah, 7 to 8 months is the current processing time. That's what it will take. What are the documents needed to provide while making the changes after getting the invite? I need to change highest level of education, also spouse's job. You don't need any documentation. You can just provide a brief letter of explanation as to why are you making those changes. Can I change my job before OINP job offer nomination? No. Again, it all depends which stream are you in. If you are in a stream which is linked to an employment job offer, changing a job means a disaster for nomination. And if you're doing it before your application to Ontario, yes, you can. But after your application is submitted and then you make all these changes with Ontario, it can have quite serious repercussions. I have an EE profile and received Ontario ITA for the master streams. Can I continue with EE while waiting for non-EE application? Yes, you can. You can have both the applications. There is no problem. You can operate both of them simultaneously. Absolutely no issues. I've got my ITA, but my closed work permit application is under restoration and I am in Canada. Can I apply for my PR application? Yes, sir, you can. There is no problem. Even if you are in Canada, out of status, but you have made a restoration application, add that information in your PR application, add that as a letter of explanation, and there is no problem. Last question, guys. Postgraduate work permit, worked 2 weeks with employer A, 1 week with employer B, and 21 months in employer C, EE 509, 2 years work experience, 3 months prior to 24 months completion. Should I expect IT? No, you should not. If you haven't completed 3 years of work experience, but you are claiming points for 3 years of work experience, and there is no way you can complete 3 years of work experience before submitting a PR application, then please do not accept it, because technically you are not eligible for those 3 years of work experience. When IRCC will do manual calculation and then they identify that you are short, then there is a very high possibility they may refuse your application. So my recommendation would not be. Final decision is yours. Wow, questions don't end, right? Let's take this one. Does car loan affect your PR application? No, it does not, because it's an asset-linked loan, but you should disclose it, and you should also disclose how do you plan to clear that liability without it impacting your proof of funds. Students are turning around and claiming asylum, which Canadians are fighting against. I agree with you, and that is one of the problems that has been created. The students are being misguided, are being misled into believing that asylum claims will be an easy way to get into Canada, or they will continue to be in Canada. They are failing to understand that once you become an asylum claimant, you can never go back to your country if it is approved. If it is refused, you will never be able to apply for a visa for any Western country as a refugee claimant for a different country. So you're creating a lot of problems for yourself. Plus, a lot of these agents are misguiding people into believing that that the refugee applications are simple and straightforward, and therefore, at least I don't recommend it. Guys, please don't do super chats. I just told you I will not be able to do it. Nirmal, same thing with you. And here, nothing here, thankfully. Okay, last question. Thank you, Nirmal. Did not align with OINP statement. I obtained a revised letter from HR explaining my supervisory duties. My friend faced a similar refusal, so I changed my knock code and HR qualification. What is the question? I don't know what we are talking about. Please, Nirmal, do me a favor. Come back into the comment section, put a detailed question, and I will come back later sometime today and then respond to your comment there. But I can't really make out what your question was. I haven't shown 1 year experience when I applied study visa. Can I show now while applying for PR profile? Big risk. If IRCC identifies this would be misrepresentation, and then you are risking with a 5-year ban. So tread with caution. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for joining in. I really appreciate it. If you wish to book an appointment for consultations one-on-one, here, this is the link. By all means, use this link. We can do virtual consultation. We can do in-person consultation because I'm in Dubai. And if you're in Dubai, I'm here for the next 2 months, enjoying the summer and the heat. And if you're here, by all means, please do visit our office. We are in One Central Trade Center, offices 3, level 3. By all means, make a visit there or book an appointment, and I'll be happy to discuss your application one-on-one. Please do follow us on all YouTube, Instagram, Twitter platforms, because there is so much of conversation ongoing at all points of time. Thank you for joining in, everybody. I shall see you next time. Take care.